Welcome to Leadership Conversations, where we talk with today's real-world leaders. My name's Marnie Fletcher, and today I'm here with Damian Cotchett, the Head of Customer Experience at AGL. Welcome, Damian.
Thanks, Marnie. Great to be here.
So today we're here to talk about heart-centred leadership, and I'd like to start the conversation with what is your definition?
Right. When I think about heart-centered leadership, it's very much around purpose. It's the why. It's understanding what are the most important reasons for why we are taking an action to be responsible for leadership. It's purpose, it's also about meaning, and it's also about values.
And I would imagine too, in your role here at AGL, defining that customer experience, that's equally as important.
Oh, it is, without a doubt, because an organisation going through any amount of change needs to be anchored around its purpose, and when that purpose requires some level of transformation, it becomes even more important. And just not for a few leaders, but for all leaders.
Yeah, terrific. And so, Damian, if you reflect on your career, and your career has very much been in ASIC's top 200 type companies, where we are surrounded with traditional notions of management. Who, in your experience, has been a heart-centred leader despite that environment around them, and what made them special?
It's a terrific question, and when you make me think about it, Marnie, it's not always easy to find people who are heart-centred leaders. But certainly many years ago, I was working with a colleague, and he presented in a way that he just lived meaning and purpose. He was actually in the finance department, which maybe not the place where you'd actually necessarily see it. But what he did was he always asked the question, why are we doing the work that we're doing? What impact's it going to have? He moved from finance into a range of roles within ANZ, but then finally left. He's now the CEO of the Good Shepherd Microfinance, and he lives meaning in everything he does, and he's not grown a business, but he's grown really a movement that actually provides so much to others.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so Adam Mooney, a very inspirational person.
Yeah, I'll have to get him on the show.
Yes, definitely.
Maybe you can introduce me.
Yes.
And so, Damian, what makes you different as a leader?
I think my leadership, it's a really interesting question because I reflect on my leadership, and I reflect how I'm actually displaying the behaviours and displaying the beliefs. I think there's three things that I focus on, and I'm not saying that other leaders don't, because I actually look at other good leaders to see how they actually behave. But one of them is I always ask the question, why? The first. Not about going and doing things, it's why are we actually taking particular actions or moving in a particular direction? Because it needs to be, one, I need to understand it, but also that's the story that I can actually convey to the people who I lead and also the people who I influence. I think the second thing is that with leadership, it's actually about knowing where you're going to make a difference. Because certainly for me, I work with really capable people. What we're trying to do is find out where we actually make a difference and have that impact. And the third is I really enjoy, and this has come certainly in the last 10 or 15 years, to empower others. Because what a person can show when they are given the opportunity to grow is just phenomenal. So they're the things that influence my leadership.
Yeah, terrific. Well, I reckon your people are lucky to have you.
Thank you.
But we all make mistakes as well.
Yes,
And there's a lot of myths around leadership that sometimes we feel we must conform to. In your career, what would you say are some of the greatest mistakes or myths around leadership that you've seen?
Yeah, I think where I see the challenge around leadership is usually in tough times, when an organisation or part of an organisation, you might say, is a bit rattled. Results haven't gone that well, expectations are high, they're not being delivered. And what I see is leaders reverting back to purely focused on results and not focused on why are we here and what are the ways in which we're going to get the best out of our people. I think the other thing is that leaders they're not open, in some cases they're not open to talk about why something is actually important. They are often just demanding results, and the people who they're leading often feel lost and alienated, and so therefore it actually doesn't result in better performance.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of things as leaders that we do that are a waste of time.
Yes.
What would you say are some of the biggest wastes of time in leadership?
I think there's two that really get me these days. One is meetings.
Yeah.
Meetings that don't have a purpose. And I think it's a real responsibility for a leader to not only outline the purpose of the meeting, but really create a level of engagement, because it's everybody's time. I think the other thing is a lack of clarity. And again, so often leaders find that they say they don't have time, but it is actually about making that time for that clarity.
Yeah, indeed. On the meetings piece, it's one of my frustrations too. And I've got into this colour coding of my diary recently, and I colour code, green times with my team, and red is, I call it, doing business with ourselves. And I don't allow too much of that.
Yes.
But it's funny, when you're setting up a meeting, I consciously at times calculate the cost of that meeting. And I go, you know what, this meeting is going to cost $2,500 to the organisation. Is it worth that? Yeah. And if it's not, you don't have it.
That's right.
Yeah.
What I do is if someone says it's a 1 hour meeting, I say no, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And because that can often give myself and other people time to just initiate actions as a result of it, or get prepared for what is coming after, because many organisations, and certainly AGL is no different, meeting happy.
Yeah.
And so it's about getting the best out of those meetings.
Yeah, definitely. Because, a great meeting can be amazing.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So much can be achieved, but you don't actually need a lot of time.
Yeah, indeed. And so through your years as a leader, and I know you've read a lot of books, is there anything, a book or a resource that's really stood out for you that's influenced your leadership journey?
There are actually two books that I continue to reference year after year. There are so many good writings out there, and just not only books these days, but TED Talks, etc. But podcasts, exactly. One is a book by Chris Lowney called Heroic Leadership, and in it he actually uses the Jesuit order as the most influential organisation that history has shown. So they're 450 years old and still convey purpose, meaning, and direction in how they lead, with a set of principles for people to operate by, and it applies in organisations as it applies in our communities. The other book that it's not strictly a leadership book, but it's one that I apply in terms of my leadership so much, and that is Immunity to Change.
Yeah.
And it's the work around breaking down barriers for myself, but also the teams I work in, and larger units. It's just invaluable. And so they're the two that I tend to reference quite a bit.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so last question for you, Damian, and it's a goodie. So imagine that I'm one of your leaders within the organisation, and there's a competition going on at AGL for Leader of the Year.
Yes.
And if I win that award under your tutelage, you win $1 million.
Right.
So you've got a bit of skin in the game.
Yes.
So it's 4 weeks, so it's sharp and it's intensive. Where would you start? How would you help me become the leader of the year?
The leader of the year. I would be. I tend to find that for you to get real confidence in your role, you need to understand the purpose and why we're here. So I'd spend a lot of time up front, and just not myself, I would also get you to access a range of people across the organisation who are influential, and it's not only the top leaders, it's a cross section. So that you get a really good understanding about what makes this organisation tick. I think the second thing is I would throw you in the deep end, and I would get you onto an initiative that is actually going right now, and it could be about well-being in the organisation, or it could be about our brand, but something that immerses you from day one into something that's really active and really alive. The other thing is I would also sit down on a very frequent basis and check in with you. You know, what's working, what's not working, what else can we do? Because I think one of the most important things that we tend to forget about as leader is getting feedback and giving feedback. And so, because what I want you to be able to do is be confident, have a level of comfort, and inspired. Yeah. So they're the things that I would do over the 4 weeks. At the end of 4 weeks, I check in.
Yeah, terrific. Sounds pretty good.
Oh, hopefully it wins me $1 million.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Damien, thank you so much for being with us today. And I think what Damian has really clearly communicated through all of the questions is the importance of purpose, meaning, and a clear sense of direction. So thank you very much for your insights.
Pleasure, Marnie. Love being here.
So for those of you out there, remember that leadership starts with you. So get out there and make a difference. And please share, like and subscribe to our channel so that we can share heart-centered leadership to the world. Thank you.